Cars can't get going until the lights on the starting gantry turn green. Look for the toy to make a break, but the Lafargue father and son combination in their little Lolas, tucked in behind, ready to go. Brilliant start by the Mirage from row 3. I think that's Chris McAllister. So look for the blue and orange Gulf liveried car getting in among the mix. The Lloyd's Insurance Lola in there too. The Crown Racing car in there as well. How tidy are they up into the Dunlop curve? Yes, very tidy indeed. No unfortunate lunges up the inside for the first half of the field, but the pole starter not just clear in the front, but breaking clear. But it's Paul Lafargue that's chasing after Father Lafargue. And Patrice, who is normally the quicker of the two, has decided he will follow his father in the first part of the race and see what unfolds.
Yeah, so Yves Scemama, the race leader in the Warsteiner livery toy. There's the Chevy Monza going through, shot ahead of the ex-Bob Aiken 935 K3. And the junior of the two K3s made a much better start. The pink and white car, there it is, just jumping ahead.
Oh, in a straight line, that Chevy Monza has got plenty of grunt as it makes up for the ground it lost. It's now tucking back under the rear wing of the pink and white Porsche K3, certainly through the corners, and they're moving past, that's Russell Büsst, is Chevron with the Lloyd's Insurance sponsorship, and certainly making his way forward, and what we call straight on into the first chicane. That's Chris McAllister's Mirage.
Carrying it a little too much speed as father and son. Lafargue run wheel to wheel on the exit of the chicane. Ferrari outbrakes itself down into the first chicane as well, and the toy is away and gone.
I said in terms of qualifying speed, it was way ahead of them, and it really is. It's a shame it doesn't have Roel Goethe to play with in the other Mirage, but the better place to the Mirage, well, the only Mirage is running in 5th place, but with great charge from that K3 Porsche, past both of the Lolas of the Lafargue father and son, and this amazing Chevrolet Monza, Gilles Ceron, up into 3rd place. He just has so much poke. Of course, you can see he's not as nimble. The Lola's quicker out of the chicane, but when power comes into play, power the Chevrolet most certainly has.
Well, don't forget, this is the first racing lap, so the Monza still has brakes at this stage as well. Imagine that may not necessarily continue to be the case all the way through. The much lighter 2-litre and 2.5-litre sports cars behind will undoubtedly fare better under braking. And there is the 935 K3, that's car number 10, Nicholas Dietrich, in 2nd place. The Monza in 3rd place at the moment, holding off a pair of Lolas from the Lafargue father and son. And then the Gunston Chevron pulls out of the slipstream, so too does the GR5 or the M5 Mirage. M6 Mirage rather, moving up by both of them. So the Mirage, this is 2nd and 3rd coming towards us, then the Mirage is up to 4th. The Gunston Lola splitting the two Chevrons, or trying to at least at the moment. Through comes the other K3, the ex-Bob Aiken car with the Coca-Cola livery. Fantastic racing, Bruce. We had a grandstand finish at the end of Plateau 5, and we're starting in the same vein here in Plateau 6.
And nobody is complaining. Slow out of Indianapolis, the Coca-Cola K3 just lost, and Patrice Lafargue said, thank you very much, I've been losing places, at least I can claim one back. But really look at the progress of the orange Chevron. That is starting to make its moves. And I think the early advantage from the Nicholas Dieter and Porsche and the Gilles Ceron Chevrolet Monza will start to unravel, because through the twisty bits, that's not where they have their advantage. You can see Chris McAllister closing in the far more nimble prototype, the Gulf Racing prototype, around the outside, but that could have been a little contact, and that would have been two cars spinning like tops, and Paul Lafargue just managed not to catch excuse me, the tail of the Chevron as it went past.
Yeah, problem for another flat-nose 935, so that car at the side of the road, and the Gunston Chevron just goes flying through, passes the Chevy Monza as they exit the Porsche curves for the first time, and the Monza has sports cars all over it. The toy is the race leader, Yves Scemama, and in 2nd place is car number 10, and that is Nicholas Dietrich.
Okay, now let us identify the driver at the wheel of the number 80 Chevron. It is none other than Martin O'Connell, a driver who just doesn't know when to stop pressing on. He is such a tough racer. He came up, he's had a bit of contact to the front right-hand corner as we look at it. Started from 11th on the grid, he's up to 3rd. And I think any time now he's going to get over the Porsche into 2nd. He's 5 seconds or thereabouts down on the race leader. But certainly the charge is on. Disappointed so far that the Lafargues, they've really lost out. They don't have the grunt, but they do have the balance in those gorgeous little Lolas, and that is the younger of the Lafargues. That is Patrice, behind his father at the moment, but they did go backwards. They started on row number 2, and they've come through in 5th and 6th.
It may well be that as the race progresses, these lighter sports cars will fare a little better. Problems for the Acuri Filippinetti at Lola T290. That car with its distinctive Gitan livery.
Has he got a front puncture? Oh, dearie me, Alfa Romeo's in the race today. Well, it's just sort of fine thing. That was Mark Richardson. We had a chat with him on Friday. That's
Sam Hancock in another Tipo 33 in the pit shaking his head. He's obviously a bit of a jinx for Alfa Romeos. What they need to do is get somebody in who's not a jinx like me.
There we are, you heard it first here, you'll hear it second here and third here. So, the battle for second place. Martin O'Connell got close to the K3 Porsche, but Chris McAllister in the Gulf is closing.
And the Ultramar Lola is in the pit lane as well. That's a real shame, and that's a car I remember watching in my very early days racing here at Le Mans.
Yes, and I think with Guy Edwards involved in that project, there was always a poster to be had. That would always be falling out of your copy of Autosport, as, of course, very commercially minded.
Absolutely right. Well, I'm not sure what the issue is with Sam Hancock. I'm assuming it's gear selection, and that might well be the issue as well for that little Lola. So a couple of cars stranded with problems. 935 K3. Now, how different ways to go sports car racing. The Mirage, the Lolas and the Chevrons and the Porsche. And all equally competitive. In comes one of the CSLs. We've already got a 911 in the pit lane as well.
It's had a bit of something exploding out from under the bonnet. It's been taped down at one side, but the Gulf Mirage car was the people that used to run Ford GT40s with John Horsman at the helm. Great engineer. They developed that car, and then unfortunately the money ran out for the program, and that was that. It had to be sold to be raced in the States, but a really strong bloodline, having run the Ford GT40s under Gulf colours, the Porsche 917 under Gulf colours, and continued to their own Mirage. And of course it took victory in 1975, but then the money ran out.
John Wyre's team, extremely professional private outfit that ran factory programs. There you can see the injectors and the long injector trumpets under the bonnet of that 6-cylinder engine in the 3-litre CSL Batmobile, the lightweight car with its distinctive straights up the nose, the big wheel arches, the rear wing, and of course all of them with the M Sport colours with that light blue, purple and red striping, so distinctive. Silver background, white background makes very little difference. There's a change for 44th place, and that is not last, not by any stretch of imagination. That's still 2/3 of the way down the field.
Just looking down the timing sheets, I think we still have 55 cars. We've had a handful of them in the pits, but out on the track, the race leader Scemama is now being chased down by Chris McAllister. So the toy leading the way, but McAllister cutting chunks out of his time around this lap. Martin O'Connell not able to hang on. In fact, he's fallen back down the order a tiny bit. He's gone behind Dieter in the K3. Can't catch up with him, but when you get to the twisty bits, O'Connell will come streaming back onto the pace.
Yeah, O'Connell's lap time, a 4-minute 22. So that's among the fastest laps on the first lap of the race. Now they're having to get the Manitou in to rescue that Lola, which got past the pit exit. There's the Interscope Porsche, Kramer Porsche, the Toblerone Porsche 911 RSR, which we see racing so frequently, and one of the fabulous M1 Pro cars. Jens Winter was one of the last exponents of Pro cars at Le Mans, always in Castrol livery, the Danish driver. Remember watching those cars, thinking how glorious they sounded and how disappointing it was that they weren't running right at the front of the field.
But of course, when you look at
problems for the Interscope car,
it was slowing as it went down into Indianapolis. By the time they got to Arnage, you could see that was back out. There's Jacques Nicolet up on the podium, so it'd be a huge round of applause for this arch enthusiast, gentleman, racer, industrialist. He's done it all, and he's got a garland to go with it, so that's wonderful. And
the Duckham Special won a race at Le Mans, won its race at Le Mans, and that's a great thing as well. Alain de Cadenet, wherever you are, hopefully you'll get to find out about that sooner rather than later.
And the car's designer, Gordon Murray, of course, so famous for all the Brabham designs, but really pushing on, and that was a car designed in not a lot of time, but I'm sure Gordon would have liked more of a crack at sports car racing. Of course, it came later on with the foundation of the McLaren M1 lineage that took victory here in 1995. Here are lots of people in a photograph. We're having a photograph in our commentary booth. Don't know why we're not famous. So the Acela, they always raced around on the scene. Now we've got, looks like a slow zone. We've got a BMW pulling off slowly and a whole host of the midfield cars locked down into slow zone. It's zone number 2 early in the lap. That's to withdraw Mark Richardson's Lola, I think, but it looks like we've got a few other fallers.
I was watching a bit of old Formula 1 footage the other day, and a driver put his arm out of the cockpit, and I'd forgotten that even existed as a thing. The universal sign of, I've got a problem, I'm slowing down. Arm out of the cockpit, the only way of indicating it. Pierre Fillon there on the right-hand side, second overall in the Lotus Elan that he was driving in his group, in his plateau. Now out of the race suit, suitably showered and refreshed, and as the president of the FIA presenting the trophies to good friend and local neighbour Jacques Nicolet, who won plateau number 4, didn't he? Fillon second in plateau 3. Jacques Nicolet, no, plateau race 3, plateau number 5. In fact, Jacques Nicolet's just won, hasn't he?
Well,
in the Duckham's 4.
Indeed, hosts of BMW problems, but certainly a car that's making real progress. We saw that yellow Acela, that is picking up places, and it looks like O'Connell is going backwards in that orange Chevron, having got up into 3rd place. He looks to be falling into the grasp of those behind. It might have been foreshortening under the yellow flag zone. There's the Allister with its tiny little front wheels. Look as though they've come off a Lego kit. They are so small. Of course, the idea to get the nose as low as you possibly can. Well,
they might have come off a trolley. Originally entered for ex-Formula 3000 racer Michel Trollet. And now with the green on the wings, expect to see the green helmet of Henri Pescarolo. He's one of the 3 drivers down to drive that. Pescarolo, of course, started 33 Le Mans in 34 years. Then started, I think, the better part of a dozen more as a team owner. Are we now going to count his Le Mans Classic starts as well as races at Le Mans? I think we might need to start adding those in as well.
Well, we could, because that would encourage other drivers who stop racing at Le Mans to come back and try and top up their total. We saw Jan Lammers here, of course. He raced this year, and that may be his last. People put it to him racing for Racing Team Nederland, but he said, well, why do you think that's my last? I might not be with his team next year.
I may not have retired. Thank you very much. Well, here's our M5, Gary McAllister, Chris McAllister, rather the race leader, yes, in the Mirage M6. What a fabulous-looking car it is. I mean, a real purpose-built sports racer with no excuses. It was designed for one thing and one thing only, and that was to win here at Le Mans. There's the toy in 2nd position. Again, not a long history of toys being built, just a handful of cars, but a very effective sports racer.
And again, almost all of them ever found were in that Vorsteiner gold livery that does look absolutely wonderful.
It's a little bit like if you own a 917 or if you own a GT40 kit car, what colour is it going to be? Well, the temptation is almost overwhelming for it to be in Gulf colours. You know, it's very hard to go, no, I'm just going to go silver and black, Holman and Moody. Well, you know, OK, it's different, but everybody will only ask you one thing. Oh, it's not a Gulf coloured one.
I know, aren't people predictable?
I know, but, you know.
So time for a windscreen clean for the number 9 911. That's not really on schedule for a pit stop. The 911 Turbo, Jean-François Piquet and Alain Trénian, but I think it's car problems. But look at the original names.
Yves Courage
is one of the drivers.
We've got a slow zone as well on the start-finish straight. The little board you can see at the bottom, next slow, is just the deceleration zone. And there is our 3rd place car.
4th, 5th, 6th, right in behind the 2 Lafargues with Father Paul in number 48, the white one, and then Martin O'Connell. He's had these slight delays, but now he's coming back. But actually, what's really happening is the Lafargues, not so quick at the start of the race. They started in row 2, but in their tiny little Lolas, the white one and the red one, they're really starting to pick up the pace. There is our our 2nd place car, the toy. The rest are bunching up. They cannot overtake. It's waved yellow flags. It's a slow zone at the start of the lap, still waiting for Mark Richardson's car to be cleared, I believe, and then once that is done, the yellow flag will be taken away, but down to 80 kph they have to go. Most of the drivers luckily have a message on their dashboard, slow zone down to 80 kph. If they don't, they go too fast, they pick up penalties. The car has been cleared, so 2nd through to 6th, almost nose to tail.
Yeah, they really are. And they now accelerate through the Dunlop Bridge. They'll see the green lights there, and they're back up to racing speed. And the idea of the slow zone is it allows marshals to work safely, but without affecting the race, because everybody has to go through a certain distance at the exact same speed, so the gaps before and after the slow zone should remain the same. There goes the toy in second place, the 935 K3 in third. There is Henri Pescarolo. 33 race starts as a driver. He missed 1 year in that entire run of races, and a multiple Le Mans winner and an utter legend. Every year he comes back is a real blessing.
And why is it so important he's racing in this group? 3 victories at Le Mans, and this group celebrates 1972 to 81. He won for Matra in 72 with Graham Hill, Matra 73 with Gerard Larousse, and the same driver pairing won for Matra in 74. Yeah. And then, of course, but the record, the legend goes on and on. The pit window is open. We've just had a BMW M1 dive in. I fancy about 5 seconds too soon. We'll look at that later. Now, but we're having a change because Paul Lafargue has moved up to third place and the toy back to fourth. So Scemama now has Martin O'Connell's a bit of front-end damage, not just on the nose of the car, but round the side of the front left from driver's point of view, something hanging out of that, but Martin O'Connell pressing on all the same, and Patrice Lafargue in the red Lola just dropping back someone. Lights may be blazing, but he's not doing it because he's overtaking people, he's doing it because he can.
Well, don't forget, of course, later in the race, and particularly once the pit stops start, they will be coming through slower traffic, so headlights help to alert the driver in front. I mean, it is a super bright day, but still something glinting in your mirror often gets your attention now. The 635 that was chucking oil out, I think, oh no, it is on a strap. I was going to say, it looks like, no, that is the one that was chucking the oil out that was in the pits earlier. I thought, okay, is it going to go back out? But in fact, it's being towed through a garage to go back home. So there's our 935 K3 in second position. And then the 48 car, the white car, the white with red highlights as opposed to red with white highlights. Paul Lafargue in third. And the man who started on pole in the toy, Yves Kikama, is in fourth position, just ahead of Martin O'Connell, but not for long, you sense. Look at the orange Gunston car tucked right up underneath of the Warsteiner livery toy, and Martin O'Connell poised to pounce.
So the Porsche in second place, Nicholas Dieter, but he's about 15 seconds down on race leader Chris McAllister, who worked his way up from row number 3, 5th on the grid, and once got in front, he's really stretched clear. Paul Belmondo standing in the pit lane talking, but that car, the pit window having only just opened, that's the car we saw limping in slowly. That was the Interscope Porsche 935 K3. The toy led the race early on, but now has fallen back, as you can see on that grid graphic on the screen, the position graphic, back to fourth place, dropping away from the car in third, but dropping back into the grasp of Martin O'Connell in that bright orange Chevron, giving chase very, very hard indeed. And Patrice Lafargue now starting to catch up all over again. When you get to the twisty part of the circuits, the homeward run from Indianapolis back to the end of the lap, the little loaders are much more effective than they are down the long straights here at Le Mans.
One of our early pit callers that the cameras didn't pick up but came whistling past our door was the Super Samurai Datsun 240Z. That had a hub failure in practice. Luckily, the owner had come down in his road car, Super Samurai Datsun 240Z. Guess where the hub on the racing car has come from? So the racing car hub is now on his road car, the road car hub is now on the racing car, because the racing car hub will drive home and survive the journey home, he hopes, but it wouldn't have survived the races. So it always helps to have a road version of your race car in the paddock, just in case, particularly when you're the only man in the field that's got that car. Not sure anybody's got a Kramer K3 in the car park, though.
Oh, I don't know. Anyhow, meanwhile, the first of the front runners from third place, Paul Lafargue, has died into the pitch. Looking at Nicholas Dieter, and he's in second, staying on. And now a lot of the drivers, Michael Hindero waiting to take over. Your final moment. I had a change of position. The toy has been passed by Martin O'Connell before the pit stops.
And now we can see what it is hanging off. It's the back of the headlamp unit on Martin O'Connell's car. So O'Connell diving through, well...
Yeah, and we'll leave it at that, Martin.
I think Eduardo Freitas would probably not allow that. Here, I think they probably might.
Yeah, so Yves Scemama not too impressed, but now by the time he's got to the pit, yeah, thumb up, all is going okay.
Oh, was it? I thought it was a hand up going, what was that about?
I'm trying to...
Did you see that?
I'm trying to diffuse the situation, Martin. You're throwing fuel on the fire.
If we had team radio, did you see how he passed me there? Yes, we saw it. We're talking to Charlie. So Martin O'Connell stays in. A fighter to the end, Martin O'Connell, as you said, doesn't know when to give up. There is no time to give up. And not until the fat lady's on the train back to the airport does Martin O'Connell consider a battle is won or lost, and exactly right so. So his rival here, the Swiss driver, Yves Scemama, in this Warsteiner livery toy. In comes the #1 car, Inaltera GT. This car dates back to 1976. As I said, won its GTP class, 4th overall at Le Mans. This car driven by rally ace Jean Ragnotti, who was quite an occasional circuit racer, and his teammate Jean Rondeau. Jean Rondeau went on at the end of this era, actually, in 1980, to become still the only man ever to outright claim victory at Le Mans in a car that bore his own name. Jack Brabham never did, Bruce McLaren never did, Henri Pescarolo never did. Jean Rondeau, constructor from the Le Mans region, is still the only man in the entire near century-long history of this race to achieve that feat. And there is the pea green helmet of one of the all-time legends of endurance racing, Henri Pescarolo, getting into the Inaltera.
And really, young drivers, take note. A driver who has a helmet, who keeps that livery through his entire career, could be picked out day or night. I think a lot of drivers who have helmets with a gazillion colours on them really should learn the lesson. It's your trademark, make it distinctive.
Well, you look at his helmet, you look at Derek Bell, Jochen Mass, Hans Stuck, you know, drivers who raced for many years with the same helmet. You know, Damon Hill was not being foolish in any way when he chose the colours of the London Rowing Club that his father Graham had used on his helmet, because that's so distinctive as well. You know, Jackie Stewart with a tartan band. There's so many distinctive helmet liveries. You're absolutely right. I think any driver who just designs a really plain, easily spotted and easily memorable colour scheme is doing himself a lot of good service.
And though we've been saying that year in, year out, I'm sure, Martin, you and I have been saying the same thing. Very few still see fit to follow. They want one that looks good when it's sitting on the mantelpiece. No, we want one that looks distinctive when it's out on the circuit. And particularly when you're looking through the windscreen of a car, you want to be able to work out exactly who is on board. As you can see, very difficult as the Inaltera is trying to pull out for the next cars to be flagged into the pit lane. Very narrow down there.
Names on the doors: Henri Pescarolo, who's currently at the wheel, and Jean-Pierre Beltoise, who also drove that car in period, as well as the two winning drivers who won the GTP class, finishing 4th overall. And the odd thing about the Inaltera, as you can see it here, watch the Porsches come out. 911 and the BMW have got bigger wheels than the Inaltera. It's got tiny wheels, and that limited its top speed, because you can only gear the car so much, and if the rolling radius of the tyre is as small as that is compared to some of the others, then you've got a bit of a problem in terms of top speed. 20 minutes to go, and the M6 Mirage leads. Driver in a Derek Bell replica helmet. Derek, of course, associated with John Wyre's team and the Gulf Racing colours for many years, and particularly in the Mirage and the 917s. But also then went on to win the last race of this era, didn't he, with Jackie Ickx in the Porsche 936, having also won in the 1973 race, the 75 race in the GR5. Again, sharing with Jackie Ickx.
They were a pairing who had just the most amazing understanding of each other. And when you're trying to nurse cars that were still relatively delicate, you needed that level of precision. And with Derek recently, he was launching a book. His 200, how nice to square it off on a square figure, 200 races in Porsches or cars with Porsche engines. Yep. And he had to acknowledge, I mean, the sheer pace of Jackie Ickx, but also the fortune. He said if anything was going to go wrong, it was always me. But they really understood each other, appreciated each other, and that's why they had so many successes together before Group C, and then as Group C really got up and running.
Patrice Lafargue in the pit lane. So number 47 car. This car started 3rd on the grid, Lola T298, with its BMW engine.
An EDEC Sport, that's the family company. You can see the Trimaran EDEC because they've got a huge involvement in ocean yacht racing as well as their motorsporting desires. And it's great to have a 2-generation family out there competing, father and son racing together, and at some point in the future maybe Paul will back off a little bit, but I don't think from the historic scene he's certainly going to come out and play. He was the first, the front runners to pit, and doing a really, really good job, running in 3rd place he was at the time.
Well, both Lafargues have now been through because, as you say, Paul has been and gone. Patrice there in the pit lane. Our race leader is still the Mirage M6. It's a shame we lost the GR7. We could have had an all-Mirage battle at the front of the field, but the race continues to be led by this car. And looking as cool, calm and collected as ever, Chris McAllister. Oh, and more trouble, and that is fresh out of the pits, I'm afraid. That is Paul Lafargue.
So he was the first one of the front runners to come in and looked so he'd got everything right. Clearly something untoward. So big shame, scratch one of the Lafargues, one of the P Lafargues, but leave one P Lafargue, please. In this case, it'll be Patrice, the son, who will hopefully get through to the end of the race. You can still see how hot it is here. Heat haze shimmering around the circuit. It really has been a scorching weekend, but an absolutely brilliant weekend. We hope you've enjoyed the streaming from wherever you are on the planet. And if you're in somewhere like Australia or New Zealand, it really is time to go to bed.
Or get up, one or the other. Well, Paul Lafargue bails out. And so son Patrice, as you say, will be leaving the pitch shortly. And how far did Paul get? Here's Chris McAllister, the Derek Bell helmet. Derek Bell is here, by the way. He was giving passenger rides around the circuit yesterday. So Ben Samuelson is right off my Christmas list.
Again.
A lap of Le Mans driven by the master Derek Bell. Yeah, so...
Right, unfortunately you often see on the timing screen messages that include infringement for slow zone sections where the drivers have gone too fast. 3 of them have picked up a 5-minute penalty, but that won't affect any of the front runners. Those are all cars further down the grid, but one of them is driven by Mr. H. Pescarolo, so the Inalterra. Of course, that's dropped down the timesheets because it's made its pit stop.
Yeah, and he's only just got in, and we haven't had a slow zone, so it'll be him that ends up being penalised as well as his co-driver, even though, yeah, I mean, you know, the real bitter thing there is if it's a drive-through and you've just got in a car, and then the first thing they say is, Henri, sorry, you have to come in and serve a drive-through. Right, what did I do? Nothing.
Yeah,
it wasn't you, but you're the man in the car at the moment. So
then the driver says, in that case, I can't hear you.
Yeah, the Inalterra, there it is, the #1 car with that pea green Pescarolo colour on the wings. And Henri Pescarolo, one of the all-time greats of sports car racing, without any shadow of a doubt. 33 race starts. Started in 1966, his last race 1999.
Wow, that's phenomenal.
So hang on a minute. So he started his first Le Mans in the first time the England football team ever got to a World Cup finals.
You're losing me already.
Semi-finals, and his last race was the next time the England football team got to World Cup semi-finals, or the year before that, in fact, they did it in 2000. So that spanned an entire generation, nearly 30 years of hurt, but for Henri Pescarolo, 30 years of success at Le Mans and counting. And
you also forget his good, strong performances in Formula 1, not often with the right team, but very, very strong in Formula 2 as well.
Absolutely right.
We're in the days also when the Formula 1 drivers came back to compete in Formula 2 on their weekends off, so it really was much, much more competitive.
72 years old currently, Henri Pescarolo, but the way that Inalterra was being driven, you would not have guessed.
Absolutely not. So the Whittington brothers K3 fires up all over again, pink and white, but not on the move. And you can see the driver just requesting the leaf blur to be blown in his direction, the heat build up inside the cockpit of the car. Thumbs up, or simply trying to cool his thumb.
We need some of that. We need somebody in here with the leaf blur.
Too late. You started talking football statistics. I knew you'd overheated.
So our race leader, Chris McAllister, has been in and gone. We were watching other action at the time, but this is the Mirage coming into the pit lane.
His advantage was over 20 seconds when he reported into the pit, so as long as a nice, tidy, smooth pit stop. Nicholas Dieter in the pit stop now, and the car that moved up to 3rd place by dint of pitting so late is the number 74 entry, which is the yellow Ocello we saw moving up the order. Roberto Turiziani and Stefano Di Fulvio, they will drop down the order a bit, but in the mix, should anything happen to other cars in the top 6.
Oily blow-up, I think, from the 71 car, Philip Bruweiler, the B21 Chevron. And that looks like a bit of a Cosworth BDG. Try some oil system has come adrift there, I'm afraid. And slippery surface flags are out.
Okay, this is the yellow Ocello I was talking about, but well done for Bruweiler. That blew, and he got off the circuit as quickly as he could out of Arnage.
That was probably making a lot of clattery banging noises down into the corner.
Oh, more troubles and flame out. BMW, it's not been their race, the BMWs. They started towards the rear of the grid, and we had one of the sister cars in trouble, and unfortunately for the 25 Batmobile that is making the sort of spectacle it didn't wish to make out on the circuit. That's shared by Heribert Vergins, Heinz Janitz and Werner Panhauser.
Now Martin O'Connell being investigated for speeding in the pit lane, and Martin O'Connell brought the car in and took it out. There was no driver change, so if there is a penalty to be served, it is because he's earned it himself.
Well, we saw his entry to the pit lane when he overtook the toy in front of him, and that could be the issue. It looked so he got the speed down by the start of the pit lane, so it could be more of an infringement rather than speeding. We'll get onto that later. Unfortunately, beat Egemann, Swiss racer, his cheetah, the Wolf Racing prototypes, stopped at the side of the track. No such problems for Chris McAllister. 13 and a bit minutes remaining in this race. His lead should be around... Well, I'm waiting for the best of the Lafargues to come through, or Martin O'Connell. And O'Connell listed in third place at the moment with the potential driver penalty. However, we'll give you the interval as soon as it's cleared up. You often get this sort of interregnum, this period after the pit stops, where not all seem straight on the timing screens. But car number 80, the big bad news for Martin O'Connell, that's under investigating for overspeeding, not speeding in the pit lane, overspeeding. I think that's more impressive. Overspeeding,
exactly. Well, the car that you just saw coming to a grinding halt raced a couple of times here at Le Mans in 78 and 79, the cheetah.
Overspeeding becomes drive-through penalty for Martin O'Connell.
Now then, that will cost him about a minute. Yes, this car here raced in 78 and 79 at Le Mans. Not classified in 1978, didn't finish in 1979. So the cheetah with its BDG engine. Now, Martin O'Connell, important now that he builds up as big a gap as he can before he takes his penalty. It will take him about 40 seconds to drive through the pit lane.
OK, and I just want to point out, he's the fastest driver on the track at the moment, not the race leader, Chris McAllister. Last time around, McAllister was over 10 seconds slower than Martin O'Connell. However, a lot of these cars were coming out of the pit, so we get the reality of their first full racing lap after their pit stop to gauge their real pace.
Well, that last lap time from McAllister was his out lap, so his current lap of 4:42, but as you say, Martin O'Connell has just set the fastest lap of that car with a purple Sector 1, fastest of the race for anybody, at 4 minutes 15, so that is a big speed advantage, but he's going to need all of that because he'll lose 30, 40 plus seconds, I guess, driving through the pit lane.
Yes, and what you get when you look at a driver's time, their in-lap to the pit seems slow because, of course, they're slow to go in the pits, and the out-lap because they're not flying up towards the Dunlop curve at full speed. They're just accelerating away from pit exit, so that's why the timing screens take a while to settle down to gauge their real pace. But the simple fact, as Martin pointed out, that Martin O'Connell set the fastest first sector of anyone on his last lap. Wait and see how quick he is at the end of the lap, but he's already had his fastest lap of the race last time around. He's going to go faster still this time, but he's got that drive-through penalty to serve, and that could be a massive factor and certainly would help Chris McAllister.
Well, this 911 Carrera RSR from 1974 did compete at Le Mans in period, and now being driven by Christophe Henriette and Thierry Lachy de Busquel. And you can see a battle of the BMs there, two CS lightweights, and you can see the car closest to us is starting to look like it's losing the passenger side door window, and the white car down the inside goes through. That's 25 taking a place away from 43. Are they on your screen? Trying to figure out, just for completists everywhere.
But what I really want to see
that's the battle for 41st, and here is the battle on the track. Martin O'Connell
has just gone into second place. He was a tenth of a second down on the start-finish line. That's what I was looking for. Patrice Lafargue now back to third place, but Patrice Lafargue doesn't have a drive-through penalty to serve.
So here's Martin O'Connell. Lafargue getting held up behind the Robin Hamilton. Was that contact? There was contact, I think.
I'm not sure. It was almost as though he lifted the car. You could always imagine putting his feet down and Martin O'Connell shifting it around Patrice Lafargue. He must have thought, I'm having enough trouble. There's Aston Martin in my path.
Yeah, so Martin O'Connell goes ahead. Now, this is his first time past the pits after the penalty was assessed, or certainly after it came up on the screen. So you normally have 3 laps in which to comply. With 9 minutes left, the third lap will be the last lap of the race. Now, he needs to go as far and as fast as possible before taking the penalty. The team will obviously tell him, you need to come in this lap, or you need to come in next lap. And
for Patrice Lafargue
in trouble.
Saw his hand coming out of the cockpit long before he managed to get, and he's come to a standstill. So the driver in second place has now become a driver out of the race. This is more of a chance for Martin O'Connell to serve the drive-through penalty. That car is overheating very, very badly. Don't know if, well, we don't know if there's a slight tap up the back on the start finish. I don't think so.
I'm not sure that that is. I wonder if he missed a gear. I'm not sure that that's coming out the. Is that coming out the inlet? I'm not sure that's steam. I'm not sure it's steam. I think that is oil smoke. So I think he's had a bit of a clattery engine let go there. May have buzzed the gears and done some damage. So that moves the toy back up into
third place for Yves Scemama. So it's been an up and down, but he's got Nicholas de Iteren in the pink and white Porsche K3 tucked in, not too far behind, about 2 seconds down the track. So this is another race that's going to go right the way to the flag. They're in the background of the shot, but Martin O'Connell's in the foreground. He's got that drive-through penalty. He's pulling off the circuit.
Martin O'Connell is stopping, so that second place stop. The toy is now back up into second.
What a yo-yo race for Scemama.
And the Porsche is in third and closing fast. Yes, Scemama, who started on pole position. Is he going to end up winning this? Well, of course, pole position, victory, yes. There can't have been much to talk about in that race.
Yeah, walk in the park.
So both Lafargues, the father and son, have both retired. When I saw Paul Lafargue pull off right out of the pit stops, I thought, uh-oh, they're in identical cars. And I thought, OK, Patrice Lafargue, he's done a couple of laps since he stopped. OK, maybe he's OK. And then the third lap out, in comes Chris McAllister, the race leader, is in the pit lane. He's already done his mandatory stop. The pit lane is closed, but a Gulf liveried Mirage just flew by us.
But he had a big lead of about 1 minute 30 seconds. Is this something that can be fixed quickly? Lights flicking on Chris McAllister's Gulf.
Unbelievable.
Well, extraordinary. Third to second to first, potentially for Yves Scemama in the space of half a lap by dint of overtaking nobody.
Somebody's dropped a phone out of an upstairs window. Marshall picks up, yeah, that's come from the gallery above. Somebody's leaning out and they've knocked their phone out. Now, I'm afraid that may not be working very much. So the toy is coming around to retake the lead of the race in 30 seconds. And the battle is on between the... Oh, no!
He's back into the race.
I thought the last race would be the most exciting finish of the day.
This is the last race. That was
the previous last race.
I suddenly saw a message on the screen. 1 lap time penalty, pit stop infringement, but it's not one of the front-running cars. Thank goodness. It's car number 75. We'll get onto that later. So suddenly, in this seesaw race that's bringing the 2018 Le Mans Classic to a conclusion, we haven't got to the finish. The toy running second on the circuit. McAllister has had that pit stop, but is the car going to be strong enough to get to the end of the race? Down comes second and third. The toy and the Porsche to the forward chicane. More repairs in the pits. That M1 isn't one of the ones fighting at the front of the field. Could have been a puncture. But for Chris McAllister back into the lead of the race in the Gulf Mirage, what is the state of the play for his car?
Goodness me. Well, we saw Jacques Nicolet win despite losing the lead in the closing stages. Going on to the last lap, he had a gear selection problem. Finally got his head around it, got back to grips with it, took the lead and won the race in the final chicanes in our last race in Plateau 5. And here in Plateau 6, 5 minutes, 38 seconds, still more drama to come. The gap is 38 seconds, first to second.
Yes, it was twice that, and Martin has talked about a run through the pits is normally about 40 seconds. It was 40 seconds and literally 10 seconds at a standstill. So that advantage that Chris McAllister built up relentlessly when he got into the front of the race, gave him the opportunity to at least make that pit stop. Maybe it was something just slightly untoward, or was it the noise that a driver gets in his head, particularly when they're way out clear in a race. But Yves Scemama does have the legs in second place to keep the Porsche K3 behind him, because Nicholas de Iteren got a whole lot closer, but... And we have to say, but 5 minutes remaining in this race. We've had so many seesaws back and forward. Past the Hammond source, Lola, he goes, no problem at all. But, Martin, what's next?
Well, look at the gap that is opening up now between that gold toy and the pink and white Porsche, and the pink and white Porsche being very cautious going into the chicane. Does it come out the other side? There's the toy. The Porsche didn't get by.
Didn't get by. He's
now,
definitely
he
concerned.
is not at full speed, I don't think. Not as quick as he was going even a lap ago. So the Porsche, has he got warning lights coming up? Was that what the issue was with Chris McAllister? Did he have the big red light on the dash that says, danger, Will Robinson, stop now, and come in just to ask the question? I don't know. I mean, we'll only ever find out these things after the race, but certainly Chris McAllister still leads in the Mirage M6.
Another thing I just want to put into the equation there, Martin, is the fact that Chris McAllister had this lead, but when he started the previous lap, it wasn't over the cars that are now second and third. It was over two other cars as the Toblerone Porsche now goes out.
That's overheating as well.
That retired. Martin O'Connell, who was due a drive-through penalty, but he was still in the mix, and Patrice Lafargue, they both pulled over in the space of about 600 metres down the back straight, down the Mulsanne straight, and now we've had the Toblerone car slipping and spinning off the circuit. That looks as though it's Arnage, but almost can't draw our eyes away from the circuit. Can Chris McAllister limp home through to the finish? There he is, the number 54 Gulf Mirage. 3 and a bit minutes remaining, so it's this lap and the next one.
Still sounds glorious, you know, it's not an engine issue, or if it is, it's not affecting the way that DFE is wailing through the power band. So what was it that foxed him, that brought him into the pits? It wasn't for a penalty, but he definitely came flashing just through the corner of our vision in our TV compound, and suddenly he was in the pits. So all sorts of high drama. Now what he's got to do is avoid any actual drama, any real contact as he's making his way through traffic, and he's got enough of a lead, Bruce, that he can just allow cars some time to sort themselves out before he decides where he's going to pounce, because you don't want to get caught out here.
No, as you said, the engine sounded good, but he may still be spending his time looking in the cockpits, checking the warning lights. What it was that brought him in, we do not know. But here he is, with 2.5 minutes remaining on the clock. He was about 40 seconds clear as he went down the back straight. It's come down to 36. He maybe is just being careful, but this will be the start of his final lap. No further extra visits to the pit lane. That is good news indeed, but he's not exactly powering over the start-finish line. He's not been able to catch the orange Lola in front of him, a car he should be able to pass with a relative degree of ease, but maybe he's just simply nursing his baby to the conclusion of this race.
Yeah, I think that might be right. He's got enough of a lead not to need to blow it. And he's onto the final lap. Yves Scemama in second place, the Swiss in the Warsteiner toy, and in third place, and dropping away in third place, the number 10 Porsche 935 K3.
He's lost about 7 seconds in his chase, so he too, I think, with nobody close behind him, Nicholas Dieter, and he's nearly half a minute clear of number 8. We haven't seen a great deal of Sinclair's car in this race, but Tony Sinclair, British racer, in his Lola T292, that's the Crown Racing car. You never know, he may yet get to the podium, but I think Nicholas Dieter in this number 10 Porsche has enough in hand. Let's see.
With our back door open, I could hear the twin-turbo motor spooling up, and not entirely sure he's got all the gears in the gearbox. Again, that might just be not quite hearing it correctly because we've got headphones on, but whatever else, we've had a scare over Chris McAllister. So far the toy has been looking like it was fairly reliable, but the Porsche losing pace on that last time around the full lap here at Le Mans.
But really what we've seen in this race is the toy should be 5th or 6th or thereabouts, but some quicker cars have gone out of the race and he's just kept on going. We thought he was going to run away from pole, but qualifying clearly was at a time of difficulty for quite a few of the teams. Some of the quicker cars were further back than they should be. Chris McAllister in the Gulf Mirage started down in 5th place, took a while to get to the front, and then he started running clear, which showed what a nonsense the qualifying had been if you just simply looked at the spare numbers, the bald numbers on the grid sheet, the lap times. But again, a great deal of caution from Chris McAllister, but that is both of the chicanes on the Mulsanne straight completed out of the way. There's no waved yellow flags at the front for him.
And look at the battle between 5th and 6th position. The Chevy Monza in 5th place with a gap of fully 0.8 of a second over the Coca-Cola Porsche 935 K3. So that ex-Bob Akin Racing car. And here is the M6 Mirage.
Well, I must say, just been studying, Martin, the times through the first sector, the first 4 cars are very equal. Nobody really gaining more than a second on the rivals. So if it stays as it is and no more warning lights come on and the tyres and the brakes last through to the conclusion, we think we know our top 4. But we couldn't say that last time, and I'm not going to say it now.
But in the battle for 5th and 6th, which we need to go back and have a look at, the cars are still nose to tail, and they've both set their fastest first sector of the race. Obviously, the fuel load is burning off, but the brakes on the Chevy Monza must be getting fairly cream crackered. It's still doing a great job.
Yeah, the Chevron Monza that looked so out of place but proved really quick at the start of the race. I think it even got up to about third place in the first lap scramble, but since then has been going very, very well indeed. But brakes were always going to be a big question mark. They were in period when these American races came to them, or continue to be so now. But there is our race leader, Gulf Mirage, out of some of the trickiest parts of the corners of the course. Still got the Porsche curves to go, but no one around him, which is exactly what Chris McAllister would want, particularly if there is some problem that he's nursing to the finish. But the 54 car, made in the south of England, looks like it's very much going to go on and take a victory that I think will be a massive relief, and certainly his team will know what was wrong with the car when he came in, or what he thought was wrong with the car. Let's say, of course, it could be gremlins in the driver's mind, and the American racer, desperate to win here at Le Mans, looks as though he's going to do that very thing.
Yeah, heading around the yellow Acela as they came through the Porsche curves. I'm now looking above our screen down to the exit of the Porsche curves. I can see blue and orange. I can see the yellow Acela behind him. They all now seeing our race leader heading down for the final time into the Porsche chicane, into the Ford chicane that ends the lap. And Chris McAllister is going to take the checkered flag, the final checkered flag of the weekend here at the 2018 Le Mans Classic. It's the Gulf Mirage M6 that claims victory in the hands of Chris McAllister. And now we look back to see where the gold Warsteiner toy is. That is coming down towards us. It'll be around 40 seconds behind.
And what I noticed, the first thing Chris McAllister did when he crossed the line wasn't punch the air, it was to raise his visor, and I think he dabbed his eyes.
I don't doubt it for a moment. Henri Pescarolo, one of the great legends of the sport, in the little Inaltera, just ahead of Yves Scemama. And the Swiss driver who started this race on pole position has been in and around the top half dozen. He will end up with a podium finish. Is he disappointed? That's not the delight of a disappointed man. A well-driven race. Others fell by the wayside, but you've got to be in it to win it. He was, and so too was this Porsche 935 K3, the ex-Whittington Brothers car, raced in IMSA in period, and a very good-looking machine will take the checkered flag to finish third. In fourth place should be the number 8 Lola of Tony Sinclair, and that's the dark blue Crown racing car. He's coming into our sight now, and he will take the flag in fourth position. And then the battle for fifth, the Chevy Monza. There it is, there's the battle for fifth and sixth. The Chevy Monza ahead of the ex-Bob Aikin 935 K3, and against all odds, the Chevy Monza, with that huge road car presence, listen to the thunder across the line, beats a purpose-built Kramer K3 to the line at Le Mans of all places. Wow, that is a great race. Those two must have had so much fun. Toys for big boys? You ain't kidding.
So if that is your first taste of the Le Mans Classic, like us, I think you would have been blown away. The racing has been brilliant, the cars have been sensational, the setting, it is Le Mans, is somewhere that people with a racing heart and blood in their veins need to come to, and I can highly, highly recommend this meeting as something you have to put in your diary for the years to come. It's been brilliant.
Yeah, some phenomenal sights, some absolutely jaw-droppingly gorgeous cars, some really close racing, some hard luck stories, as always in motorsport. Neither Patrice nor Paul Lafargue finished a race that they could well have ended up on the podium of, but they weren't the only ones. Martin O'Connell's car as well. We went through a period there, not long after the pit stops in, where everything was stopping, and there you go, driver coming across the line in his Porsche and saluting the crowd. And there has been a huge crowd on hand. Maybe not the vastness of a 24 hours, but then there's nowhere to put a 24-hour spectator crowd, because most of the areas where they'd be camping are full of teams and cars and motorhomes and trailers and all the ephemera to run, getting over 700 racing cars through this Le Mans Classic weekend.
So let's take a look at the results. The final race of Le Mans Classic 2018. Chris McAllister winning by 45 seconds in his Gulf Mirage. Yves Scemama up and down the race order in his toy, but a very well-deserved second place. And Nicholas Teiteren in the best of the Porsche K3s, the 935 K3s in third place. Tony Sinclair, a quiet race, but he kept himself on the island to finish fourth in his Lola. And then Gilles Ceron in that fantastic, bulbous Chevrolet Monza, using all that 5.7 litres of V8 grunt to keep Uli Beck behind him in the 21 Porsche K3, the Coca-Cola car. Brilliant racing, and there are the cars coming into Parc Fermé for the final time, driving up the Formula One the paddock for the 24 hours at the end of the meeting.